the Dogon tribe. And the French ethnologists, they observe that this tribe celebrates every 50 years a special festivity. So the ethnologists ask them, why only every 50 years? That's quite a long period for a festivity. I mean, not even every generation can be part of this festivity. And the Dogons, the priest says to the ethnologist, we do this every 50 years because every 50 years an invisible star is surrounding that star up there. And they pointed to our Sirius star system. So every 50 years, an invisible star surrounds Sirius. Now the ethnologists say, come on, if the star is invisible, you don't see it. There's no reason for your festivity. They said, oh yes, we know it, because our gods visited us from there and they told us that. Now the Dogon tribe not only knew about this invisible star, they had pictures, cave paintings, and there you saw an eclipse. Not the circle, an eclipse. And down at the right corner of the eclipse was Sirius. They marked Sirius with a point. And they said, this invisible star is surrounding Sirius in the form of an eclipse, and Sirius itself is always right down at the right corner. Modern astronomy knows that Sirius is in fact a double star system. The bright shining Sirius, which everyone knows, is called in astronomy Sirius A. And there is an invisible star called Sirius B. Sirius B is a so-called white dwarf. You cannot see it with your naked eye. Now, the natives know about it. Now, another story which is linked to this story. In South Africa are ruins, which you see on our screen, the ruins of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe was further called Rhodesia, and now today it's our own state, Zimbabwe. And in Zimbabwe, they have this ruin of an eclipse, and down in the right corner, they have a tower. This ruin has no paintings, no writings, nothing. The ethnologists of Zimbabwe have no idea who made that ruin of Zimbabwe and what the symbolic is. In the meantime, they learned about the Dogon tribe, which are just their neighbor in Africa. And maybe this ruin shows the star system of Sirius with down in the right angle Sirius, Sirius is in the right angle, and Sirius B, the invisible, is surrounding Sirius A in that form of an eclipse. Now, you cannot see Sirius B. You cannot know that Sirius B makes an eclipse. You cannot know that the star Sirius is down in the right corner. You see nothing of all this. And they know this since many, many generations. Why? For every festivity, their high priests have different masks. Every mask shows different signs. These signs are dates. Now they make their festivity every 50 years. So for every 50 years, new masks are created. At the end of the festivity, they hang their masks on the central house. Now you simply have to count the masks. Every mask counts for 50 years, 50, 100, 150, 200, etc. And you know, since thousands of years, they have this knowledge of Sirius B surrounding Sirius A with the Sirius down in the right corner. And they absolutely could not know it and see it by the naked eye. And their information is handed down them by a visitor from the Sirius star system. A mystery. Here we really know somebody has informed this tribe with a scientific message. It's not just folklore or something like this. The next mystery, which does exist, is from Greek. It was on Easter of the year 1900, when Greek divers at the sea from the island of Antikythera in the Mediterranean Sea. They found in 60 meters deep a wreck, an old ship. Different objects were brought to the surface, little statues, engraved stones, and something which looked like a bigger stone with some engravings on. This mechanism is a computer. Not a digital computer, but an analog computer. Now, 2,000 years or more in the past, it was theoretically possible to construct such a thing. Our handicraft were able to do these things. But what is absolutely not possible is the knowledge of the dates of the planets in our solar system. You know, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, these little planets were found only 150 and 200 years ago. How do they come across? And 80 cogwheels, you see them only under a magnifying glass. So we have absolutely no idea where this mystery, the machine of Antikythera, came from. But they have the knowledge of all the planets in our solar system. Somebody must have taught them in antiquity, and this somebody must have been an extraterrestrial. In our own solar system, we have no other forms of life, not intelligent forms of life, so it must have come from outside. The machine of Antikythera, as it is called, can be seen today in every detail, by the way, at the National Museum of Athens in Greece. When you ever go to Athens, go to the National Museum, and they show you the computer in every detail, the machine of Antikythera. More than 2,000 years or even older than that. The next impossibility also comes from Turkey. It was in the year 1929 in Istanbul. Somebody cleaned up some rubbish at the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul and found an old map designed on the skin of an animal. On the lower side was an inscription which said, designed by Piri Reis on April 7th of the year 1513. No one on this world possesses a map like this. Designed 1513? No one possesses a map like this. It turned out that Piri Reis was an admiral of the Turkish Marine. And on the backside of the map, he wrote himself that he designed this map on the base of different other old maps, which they made him a present at the Library of Alexandria. So there were different maps, and Piri Reis, the admiral, composed it out of different maps, the Piri Reis map. What does our society want more? Our astronomers, I adore them, brilliant people, astrophysics, but they don't know nothing about these things. They have no idea. They are looking for microscopic cells and stuff in meteorites, and they are not opening their eyes. We have proof that extraterrestrials were here. And I say we have, not just speculation, curiosities. We know what we are talking. And I especially know what I'm talking. I have published 45 books on this subject. I know what's going on. But our brilliant astronomers are not interested. This cannot be, this is impossible. Extraterrestrials could never visit us. The distances are too big, or they don't look like humans. They have no idea what is going on. Of course, the distances are large between one star and another. But it is easy to reach these distances. Look, everyone here knows the American space shuttle. Remember this machine which you go up. With every lift up, you transport 50 tons to an orbit around the Earth, roughly 30 tons. Now it's a question of money. If you start every 4 months, or if you start practically every week. If we have 5 or 10 machines, space shuttle, you will start every week. That means every week you transport 30 tons in an orbit. You put all this material together to a gigantic circle. It has to be a circle. The circle is finished, you turn the circle around its own axis. By turning the circle around its own axis, you create gravity inside by the centrifugal force. So you don't swim around there. And then the circle, you have to have an engine in the center, and you simply start. Slowly, with only 2% of the speed of light. Nothing like over speed of light, nothing like hocus pocus or mysteries, just 2% of the speed of light. With 2% of the speed of light, you would reach the distance of 10 years within 500 human years. They say 500 human years, nobody will survive this. Of course not, but think it's a generation spaceship. The parents make children, the children make children, the grandchildren make children, etc. So after 500 years, you reach another solar system. There you look for a planet which is similar to our Earth planet. 10 years ago, we believed that the Earth is unique in the universe. Only we have water, only we have the right temperature, not too hot, not too cold. In the meantime, we know the universe is full of Earth-like planets. So you reach an Earth-like planet after 500 years of travel. Now you give to the crew, which you send down to the new detected planet, you give them another 500 years to develop an industrial society. So 500 years on the way, 500 years to develop an industrial society. They should develop an industrial society. I'm sorry, how long or how old is our industrial society? Our engines, 150 years, 200 years, 250 years? And we had to create, to work, everything out of evolution of technology. Our forefathers had to learn every detail before we have our industries. Here in that example, they don't have to start at the beginning. The travelers from the spaceship know it. They tell them how machines work, how you can, what kind of raw material you use, where you can find the raw material. You give them 500 years for an industrial society. After 500 years, they would be able to construct their own spaceship. Now you have two spaceships. The old one, with which they arrived, and the second one, the new one, which they made. And this new one starts again, and this again, 500 years on the way. And again, another 500 years to create an industrial society far away. With expanding of only 2% of the speed of light, you would create intelligent forms of life in our Milky Way completely within 10 millions of years. You think 10 millions of years is big? Forget it, it's nothing. Our universe is billions and billions of years old. It's nothing, it's just not even a thousandth of the date of the universe. Everything is possible. There are no breaks. This is impossible, we cannot do it. Of course you can do it. Another story, about 2,500 years ago, roughly 500 BC, the Greek historian Herodotus was in Egypt. He has written 2 books about Egypt. And in his second book of history, he says, the high priest showed him 251 statues on a road, on a boulevard. The high priest and Herodotus were working, 241 statues. And the high priest said to every statue a story. Who was his name, when he was living, from what to what. At the end of the boulevard, the high priest said to Herodotus, these 241 statues represent 11,340 years. At that time, the high priest said, the gods from the firmament were among the humans. Since that time, the gods have not returned. If you want to control this, take Herodotus' second book of history, chapter 140, 141. He says 11,340 years ago, the gods from the firmament were living among the humans. Since that time, they have not returned. Now Herodotus made this statement, seen from today, 2,500 years ago. So to the 11,340 years, we have to add 2,500 years. So roughly 14,000 years ago, it all happened, that the gods were among the humans. And Herodotus also says, in his second book of history, that deep under the pyramid, the plateau of the pyramids, there is a lake. And under the lake, covered by the water, is a black sarcophagi. Our ethnologists and archaeologists from Egypt, they never took Herodotus' word for true. They say, what is he talking about? 11,340 years, this is all nonsense. The history of old Egypt is, if we take it very high, 2,500 BC, maybe 3,000 BC, but not 11,340. What are you talking about? And the sarcophagi, a lake under the pyramid, that's all rubbish, says our Egyptologist, does not exist. Some years ago, I read a short article in a Swiss newspaper that archaeologists discovered under the pyramid, on the pyramid plateau, in fact, a lake. That was just a short message, and then we heard nothing anymore. Of course, Ramon, my secretary, and I, we went down to Egypt. Don't ask me how much money I paid for the bakshish, for the professors. We simply paid. I said, I want to go down there. If this story is true, I want to know it. I want to bring the picture here. And of course, Ramon and I were down. I show it to you. The entrance is not under the pyramid, it's on the pyramid plateau. You enter up here, so to this room. From that situation, you go, there is one small ladder, only 2.5 meters. You enter into a room. And from that room, you have a shaft right down, deep down. But the shaft, you see this shaft here, is so large that it has room for 2 ladders going down. You just see them. You come to another room. You have to go down on your knees. And then you enter into this room, and in the room are 7 niches cut out of the wall. But only in 2 niches are sarcophagi. This one is black basalt. There are no black basalt, which is volcanic rock, nearby. They must have transported from far away. Why do they use black basalt? The next sarcophagi is made out of granite. Egyptologists told me here, when they found it, the sarcophagi were empty. I don't believe it, but they were empty when I came down. Now, from this point, another shaft goes down. And you will see this second shaft is not the same one as before. Before we had 2 ladders. And you see now, that's another shaft, only 1 ladder going down. Now you are 52 meters in the rock under the pyramids. Imagine that. Over you are the pyramids. Again, you have to go on your knees. You have to crawl to the next room. And there you see, all of a sudden, water. It's not a sea, it's a pan of water here. Now, we had, of course, our flashlight, but we cannot use the flashlights because as soon as we used the flashlight, the reflection was so strong that you could see nothing anymore. Now, finally, we realized that, in fact, in the water, you see, slowly coming up the corners of a sarcophagus, covered by water. Here you see it. Archaeologists today have taken the lift off, and these 2 wooden pieces are part of today, not from antiquity. Now you see the sarcophagi in the water, covered by water, under the pyramid plateau. And the water is groundwater. And it was already there because you are at a deeper level than the Nile. This groundwater was already there when somebody constructed it. Who made something like this? Thousands of years ago, under the pyramid. The pyramid is a secret already. Why another secret under the Great Pyramid? We have no answer. You see the sarcophagi? Now a friend of mine who works there as an Egyptologist, he called me one day, he said, Erich, we will try to put the water pumps on to push the water out, but only for a few minutes. As soon as the pumps stop, the water flows back. So I had the chance to be there in a situation when the water was not there. You see how precise this sarcophagi is cut. Again, here they told me it was nothing inside the sarcophagi. I don't know if this is true or not. But the question remains high. We are on the plateau of the pyramids in Egypt. There are these gigantic buildings over us. Why, for heaven's sake, is somebody making deep under this plateau other mysteries? And there are more shafts and tunnels, which we know. Some of these shafts and tunnels are so small that not even a boy, a child, could go in there. So what is down there?